The Norman Conquests, a historical humans production. William I of England, sometimes William the Bastard, but probably most well known as William the Conqueror, was Duke of Normandy and eventually King of England. William was born as the illegitimate son of Robert I of Normandy and his mistress, Herleva. He became the Duke of Normandy at the ripe old age of 7 years old when his father passed away. This led to some infighting among the aristocrats as they attempted to control the Duke and push their own interests, a tale as old as time. In 1047, William ended a rebellion and established his authority of the Duchy of Normandy. The Norman Conquest began in earnest upon the death of English King Edward the Confessor. There are three main schools of thought as to the line of succession, and we will discuss all of them. Predominantly, it was believed that the throne had been promised to William. However, this was based off the implied celibacy of Edward and alleged promises of the throne to William. However, the second camp was that of Harold Godwinson, who was the person to immediately ascend the throne following Edward's death. Godwinson was the brother-in-law to Edward and helped look after the king and his family during struggles with poor health. It is believed that Edward awoke from a coma to crown Harold as his successor and entrusted him with protection of the country. It is noted that the deathbed wish was not well documented, and it should be noted, too, that William did not argue against the validity of the claim that there was a deathbed promise, but instead he argued that his earlier agreement held precedence. The third claimant to the throne was Norwegian King Harald Hardrada, whose claim was based upon a pact that was made between Harthacnut in 1040 that if either Magnus or Harthacnut died without an heir, the other would succeed. King Harold Godwinson's brother, Tostig Godwinson, had convinced the Norwegian king to join the scramble for the English throne and had begun conducting raids in early 1066 with a fleet of ships from Flanders. He continued to raid north in East Anglia and Lincolnshire. The Norwegian king Harald Hardrada invaded northern England in September of 1066. Charge of a fleet of over 300 ships and 15,000 men. Harold's army was augmented by Tostig's. Hardrada continued on to York, which eventually surrendered. The royal forces took 9 days to travel from London to York, covering 25 miles per day. The English marched on the Norwegians and took them by surprise at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Both Harold of Norway and Tostig were killed. The Norwegians suffered such high losses that 24 of the original 300 ships continued home. This worked twofold, as now Harold Godwinson's army was weakened and, most notably, far away from the English Channel. In steps William, stage right. William, for his part, gathered forces from Normandy and all over France, including from Brittany and Flanders. He was prepared to cross the Channel by the 12th of August. While exact numbers of soldiers and ships is unknown, estimates vary from 14,000 to 150,000. However, modern estimates are around 10,000, with the majority being mixed between foot soldier, cavalry, and archers. William also carried Pope Alexander II's blessing for the conquests. While the army was prepared by August, they did not receive approval to deploy until late September. Upon arrival to England, the Normans quickly built a wooden castle at Hastings, which they used to raid the local area. Harold left much of his army in the north and marched south, where, during the march, he learned of the Norman arrivals. Again, Harold attempted to surprise his unwelcomed guests, however this time, they had better scouts. Again, numbers of troops remained varied, but the general consensus is that there were around 7,000 or 8,000 English troops present. The Battle of Hastings began on October 14th, 1066 and lasted throughout the day. The battle went back and forth, as initially Harold's troops created a shield wall and inflicted mass casualties on William's forces. After some false retreats and feigns on William's part, rumors swirled that he had been killed during the fray of the battle. This was later proven to be false as William rallied his soldiers and proceeded to win the battle. It was only when Harold was killed that the battle had truly ended. The Bayeux Tapestry shows Harold as having been killed by an arrow to the eye, but this could be a 12th century reworking of the story. Harold's body was identified after the battle, and despite a generous offer by his mother for his weight in gold, William demanded that the body be thrown into the sea. There was still plenty of fighting to continue, though, and William continued his march through the Thames Valley and eventually ended up in London. He was crowned King of England on December 25th, 1066, in Westminster Abbey. This is the story of the Norman Conquest. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends.